After a few wooden iterations, kind of playing around with different angles, I have a cardboard template in there right now that mimics where the frame is going to be. You can see it takes a big rise up there, heads forward, and then it drops back down in the front so it can clear this cross member, which is going to have a body mount to hold that radiator support. A lot of considerations. Steering box is not the least of them. Steering box, track bar mounts, tire clearance when steering. There's just a lot of different things you got to consider when putting that frame rail in place. I've allowed it some room there. You can see there still is a gap between the frame and the axle. Now there are other things that are going to move around. The engine's probably going to move backwards and upward, but we're not quite there yet. So anyway, got to do something before, there's so many different pieces that have to get put in here, and we have to start somewhere. So we're going to start with frame rail here. Get that template out, marked out on some steel, start cutting. Little test fit action. Have a frame rail tacked into place, kind of roughly where it needs to be. Gonna notch the inside fender here because it's hitting pretty hard, so I can't line it up exactly. So we're gonna take this nose off, do some cutting and trimming, get that piece whacked out of the way, and then we'll retest fit. Hopefully be able to get both sides in here quickly. frame rails are welded, but not welded to the previous frame. They're slipped inside. I'm going to slide it a little bit further in to get rid of this. And we have enough frame sticking out there, so it's not going to be an issue. Slide it back in there, get it leveled up, square, true, and weld it. At this point, I've got the frame rails notched in where they fit in the existing frame really well. So I wanted to keep them the same distance apart, front to rear, kind of square them up. So I'm measuring here, laying them out on the table so they're nice and flat, and taking the C-channel, and I'm just going to prep that C-channel after everything's nice and true, and weld that in place to hold them just temporarily while I get it welded onto the existing frame. Okay, now that I have that welded up, I can take the entire assembly, bring it over to the frame, and slip it right in like that. Now, I want to make sure that this is pretty true, so I clamped another piece of square tubing that I had there to hold those flat, and then used a level to kind of measure off the roof, see what I'm doing, leveling it front to back, and then side to side as well. Once I was pretty confident that I was at least close to level, I laid in some weld. I TIG welded everything up to this point, but the existing frame rails were, there's paint and dirt and crud and stuff on them. I cleaned them up nicely, but I just didn't want to take the time to clean them to perfection so I could TIG weld it. So I just MIG welded those off. So after all that mocking up, checking clearances, making sure everything's true, level, square, we did get the frame fully welded in. I redid this front section here to tie in better with this body mount. I'm going to ditch the factory body mount here and go with something a little bit different. It's going to be rubber based still to keep down the vibration, so should have a similar effect to a factory one. Pretty excited to get to this point. This was one of the kind of fundamental parts of this build. everything's going to be built off of this. The suspension's going to tie into this. The motor mounts are going to tie into this. Radiator support. Everything is built off of this. So I had to kind of get this right. Hopefully I did. Not positive on that. But we'll see in the next time. We're going to mock the engine up correctly and get the axle kind of in place. Start designing suspension, motor mounts, and those big fun parts. Cool. Hope you'll check that one out too.